Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're listening this from. I'm your host, David Kafka, and joining me is David Santilli. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here with us.
Good afternoon. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And we want to respect your time. We're trying to knock this down into a 1 hour webinar, but we want to leave some time for some questions. And we're happy to go over a little bit if you have questions that you want to ask. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. This is about offshore investing. I'm David Kafka. I'm the principal of Caribbean Capital Group, and I oversee acquisitions, investment strategies, business development. I've been living in Belize. Last week was my 14th year anniversary, and have several businesses, one of which is Remax First Choice Belize with real estate offices in Placencia, Hopkins, and Corozal. So I have a lot of expertise knowing the country forward, backwards, and everything. So once I saw what I wanted to, see with agriculture, with my background in landscaping, I definitely wanted to do something in agriculture. Couldn't have this webinar without my legal team making sure I put a disclaimer on here. So this business plan, this pitch deck, whatever you want to call it, is for informational purposes only, not intended to be general solicitation or a secured offering. So it's just getting some information to you. And if you want more information, then we're happy to get on a call and then move you to the next steps. If you want to join David and myself and our other investors in joining this beautiful ride in Belize with agriculture. So the projected returns are between 12 and 14%. We have a minimum investment right now of $20,000. This is a SEC registered 506C exemption for U.S. persons. They have to be accredited investors to participate in this offering. That's how we're able to promote it, talk on podcast and things like that. Take a screenshot with my contact info if you have any questions, and it'll be in later on as well. But what does 506C mean? Basically, it's a way that you can invest outside of the stock market. It's a traditional exemption. There's two exemptions, 506B and 506C, which is basically means that you have to be accredited, and I can't take your word for it. I have to do a third-party verification. What is an accredited investor? Well, if you look, the definition down here is it's a net worth of over $1 million US, excluding your primary residence, and it's individually or with a spouse or partner. Or you can qualify by having income over $200,000 individually or $300,000 with a spouse or partner, and each of the prior 2 years with a reasonable expectation to do that here in 2024. So we call Belize as international investing on training wheels because it's an English-speaking country. It's British colonial, so it's very much like investing in the US. Main language is English, and so all the contracts are in English. And so the Caribbean, the country of Belize, is the fastest growing market in tourism and one of the top tourist destinations in the world. Tourism, though, only represents about 30, I think it's now 32% of GDP. And agriculture and seafood export would be the second largest contributor to the GDP. And agriculture is over 50 million Belize dollars, or about 25, a little over 25 million US in the fourth quarter of 2021. We have 1.9 million acres of land that you can build on or agriculture wise develop, and it's just right for developing and investing in agriculture business. It's easily accessible to the US by air, land, and sea, with close proximity to strong international relations with Canada, the UK, and of course, the US. Our government is a peaceful, stable, democratic election. We have a two-party system, just like in North America, but we're not as far apart as some political parties are in some countries. And what makes Belize attractive for investors is because it's English speaking, like I said. We have a large skilled labor force. The currency is pegged to the US dollar, 2 to 1, and it's pretty affordable. It's not cheap, but it's affordable real estate with a high demand. And the property laws are both applicable to Belizeans and foreigners equally. There's no capital gains tax, there's no estate tax, and as part of the Detroit Barber lowest tax jurisdictions, the T8 tax jurisdictions of low tax jurisdictions, with our income tax starting at about, it starts at about, I think, 0.5%, and it goes up to 15%. Whereas we fall in the agriculture business as 1.75%. We have some of the strongest banking and privacy laws in the world, and has decided not to sign informational sharing and tax treaties with the US. So why do the wealthiest 1% invest in agriculture? Well, Bill Gates, he leads the headlines with over 269,000 acres in 18 states within less than a decade. It's no surprise that an estimated 30% of all US farmland is owned by landlords who don't farm it themselves. They lease it out, if you will. And agriculture, as we know, is the world's largest industry. The global market grew from 12.2 billion in 22 to 13.3 billion in 2023. That's a growth rate of 9.4%. And a science and an art. Farming requires a skilled workforce and combination of real assets, including your labor, your equipment, natural resources such as land, soil, air, sunlight, and water. As an industry, agriculture can be grouped with other real assets such as forestry, timberland, real estate infrastructure, precious metals, industry metals, and equipment. And as we're going through this webinar, all the pictures you see that are thoughtfully placed in this pitch deck all comes from our farm here at Finca. Get rid of that. So agriculture equals land, and assets always appreciate. So land is considered to be the asset with the longest life. It can't be depreciated. You cannot account for its cost by gradually reducing its value, which is what depreciation means. The useful lifespan of land is eternal. Now, what we can do, and we'll talk about it later, is we can depreciate the trees and the assets. Acquiring stakes in agriculture is a long-term play that can help maintain and grow wealth through land value appreciation, and then doing what we're doing, which is growing different products. It's a diversification hedge to diversify your portfolio. You have some short stuff, you might have some gold and silver, you might have some long-term investments, which kind of hedge everything. You have, cash flow plays and other things like that. Changes in administration, elections, or, another virus doesn't really affect how the trees grow. And your investment is a backstop by the value of the land. It kind of cuts off on here. So I appreciate, I apologize for that. But it's not a speculative investment because it is tied to the land. So the executive summary, if you will, is Caribbean Capital Group is proud to present this unique offering that we believe will deliver you a powerful combination of, some yearly cash flow, some depreciation, long-term appreciation that accumulates in high returns, especially given all the recent news articles on cacao that we'll kind of go in later, and the increasing crop yields of as we plant more and more trees. So if you're looking to invest offshore to diversify your portfolio, we kind of call it, Belize is kind of like, this is a bank account outside, the FDIC. It gets you outside the US banking system, if you will. We pass down a generational wealth legacy. So, you get this forever. We do allow you to sell it after a 5-year hold, but this is really intended for a legacy investment, right? You hold a passive income streams. It helps reforest the earth, and we do this one tree at a time. It helps provide food, essential oils, and things like that, timber. So there's a very social impact as well, because we also give back and we provide jobs for an area that typically has low or high unemployment. So if any of these resonate with you, then this deal might be for you. Finca Chocolat, Belize, is a 515-acre cacao, timber, and spice farm on the Barranco Road in the Toledo district of Belize, which is the southernmost district or state, if you will. In Belize, we don't have states, we have districts. It is one of the 2 largest cacao farms in the country. And in the early 1990s, the previous owner clear-cutted most of this property and used it as a cattle ranch. When the former owner left Belize in the early 2000s, the ranch kind of went in a slow decline. And in 2015, my partner, David Santilli, put together a small group of investors and purchased the farm, rehabilitated the grounds, and rebranded it as Finca Chocolat. So let's introduce David, and he'll kind of take on, the next few slides.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. So I'm David Santilli. I'm the majority owner of Finca Chocolat, and I'm the managing director. I actually, like David, I came from the States. I moved to Belize full-time in 2006, and I am a naturalized Belizean citizen. In addition to being involved in agriculture, I also have 2 tourism businesses. So as David pointed out, I made the decision to be in the top 2 lines of business in Belize, given GDP. Prior to that, I had a consulting firm in DC and made a lot of money at it, but it wasn't very fulfilling. So I wanted to do something that had more of an impact on people's lives without just handing out money. And Finca Chocolat was one of the ways in which I chose to do that. So David was right until last night when I changed this particular slide. All the pictures on this presentation are of the farm itself, except for this one. This is the only one. Sorry, David, I made a liar out of you on that.
That's all right.
What we're doing at Finca Chocolat, and the reason I changed the slide is because the farm is just too big. It's hard to get the perspective of it into one picture of this. So what we're doing at Finca Chocolat is we're putting together an agroforestry system where we have a multi-strata, multi-level system. And we have the canopy, which are the hardwood trees. We have the cacao, which is the mid-story. And then we're doing spices like vanilla, cardamom, and turmeric in the understory, as well as lemongrass in some of the open areas, while the hardwoods mature enough to provide shade for the cacao. And so everything kind of works together in the system where it's symbiotic, and the trees thrive, the cacao trees thrive off the shade from the hardwoods benefit from the leaf litter from the cacao trees, and the understory crops make sure that we're maximizing the value per acre on the farm. What do we have on the farm? In addition to the primary crops that we have for finances right now, which are cacao and salmwood. The other commercially available crops are cashews, of which we have 7 acres, lemongrass, which we started a test on last year and which we're expanding aggressively. We'll talk more about that in a minute. The understory that I just talked about is vanilla, turmeric, and cardamom. All of these are chosen because they are high value crops that work well together in this multi-strata system. And they can all be processed, dried, or stored. So we don't have to worry about perishability. Other crops we have on the farm are banana and plantain. The hardwoods are specifically, in addition to the salmwood, rosewood, barba jolote, and mahogany. We've got the scientific names of those later if you want to look them up, if you're not familiar with the local name, as well as a handful of other things like soursop, breadfruit, achiote, pigeon pea, and bamboo on the farm. As I kind of mentioned, all of these contribute to the biodiversity at Finca so that we are not dependent on any one crop, right? You can always have a problem or a little decline in the year in the market in one. We are looking to diversify into 3 to 4 different distinct revenue streams, but which complement each other. So like the cacao and the vanilla go hand in hand with each other. When we market to people who buy cacao beans, the vanilla buyers are the same exact people. So we're trying to reduce our costs and address a broader market with the same amount of effort. The banana and plantain leaf, for example, are used when we ferment the cacao. The bamboo offcuts from the trees we use to produce biochar. Lemongrass is composted after distillation, so it's a very circular system where we try to make sure that we're using every input on the farm. Biochar, if you're not familiar with it, is basically burning organic matter in a low oxygen environment so that you wind up with simply the carbon structure. And then we can mix that in with our composting efforts. It's a carbon sequestration tool. It holds 30 times its weight in water. So it's fantastic to help the trees get through the dry season. And it provides a structure for microbes in the soil to thrive. In 2023, Finca was actually nominated for something called the Earthshot Prize, which is a £1 million prize given out from the UK. We didn't win, but in 2024, the nomination committee asked us to resubmit. So I still think it's a long shot, but it's nice to be acknowledged for the work we're doing at Finca. Now, we didn't talk about this in the past, but I want to bring something into the front here. The cacao market, and probably the reason we had such a turnout for this seminar in some ways, other than Serena helping us to get everyone online, is that the cacao market has just gone crazy in the last year. So there were shortages in supply in 23 and 24. The shortages are even more so. There are really 2 distinct markets in cacao, though. You have fine flavor cacao, which is about 15% of the overall market, and commodity cacao, which is what you see traded on the exchanges and the futures markets. In the past, there was no real correlation. The correlation was about 2.5 to 1 in the pricing. So commodity cacao was priced at about $2,500. Fine flavor cacao was around $6,000 to $8,000, depending on how you were selling it in small quantities or in bulk. Commodity cacao over the last year has gone from $2,500 to nearly $6,000 right now. I think it was like $5,800 yesterday. And because of the reasons there are shortages, there's been a lot of problems in Western Africa, which there's 2 countries that produce the most cacao in the world. And these 50% of the cacao in the world comes from Western Africa. And they've had some issues with disease. They've had some issues with gold miners coming and taking over plantation. And they have had some other issues that are not going to change in the near future. So I don't see this price changing too much in the next 3 to 4 years. It's not going to stay at 6,000, I don't believe, but it's not going to go back to 2,500 anytime soon. And what this does for Finca is it opens up from 15% of the market, we can sell to 100%. We've had large companies that normally would buy from West Africa starting to approach us about buying in quantity from Latin America, and specifically from Finca Chocolat. Something I want to point out here is when we started the farm in 2015, we ran our numbers at a $2,500 commodity rate and knew we could make a successful entry into the market at that rate if we had to. We're not, we're selling at much more than that. But the nice thing is we don't need pricing to be at this level to succeed and proceed with our plans. Next slide, Dave. Thank you. So consumption of chocolate has also increased remarkably. So you've got demand increasing and you've got supply decreasing, which is a really nice time to be a producer. As I pointed out, there was a lapse in the supply of fine flavor cacao even prior to this happening in West Africa over the last year. And we are extremely well positioned in that we already have 100,000 cacao trees in cultivation. Not all of them are mature, but they're coming into maturity now and over the next couple of years. And we will add 15,000 trees annually until we reach our capacity of about 180,000 trees. Now, that's going to happen with or without any additional investment. So as the trees we already have in the ground mature, we will be profitable. And we will reach this 180,000 trees no matter what happens with additional investment or not. Each year, we're adding another 15,000 trees until we reach maturity, which will probably be, if we have no outside investment, it's going to take us 5.5 years to do that. So about 6 years by the time we're done. We sold all of our cacao in 2022 and 2023 before prices increased at over $6,000 a ton, when the ICCO rate was averaging about 2,400. And the market appears to truly be shifting in favor of producers. And part of the reason is that it takes cacao trees 5 years to produce fruit. So we've got a 4 or 5 year moat. Even if everyone in the world decided to plant a tree today, it's going to take them 4 or 5 years to catch up with demand. Our cacao is planted on a 10 by 12 grid, which gives us 400 trees an acre. If you're talking to someone about an orchard of any type, and they say, oh, I've got 1,000 acres planted, it's truly meaningless. You need to ask them how many trees they're planting per acre, what the density is, and what the return is on that. So we're looking at a density of 400 trees per acre. The trees yield on maturity at 5 years about 1.5 pounds. We're growing Trinitaria cacao, and the commercial lifespan of cacao is about 30 years, right? The nice thing about what we're doing here is with a lot of tree farms, they ask for investment and then you don't see anything for 25 or 30 years. With the cacao, we have a nice steady cash flow coming in as of year 5, which we're already there on some of the trees, and every year we add more, so that we can pay for operations and give a return while we're waiting for the hardwood trees to mature. Okay, all of our processing is done on site. So from the time we germinate a seed, we grow it in the nursery, we put it in the field, we take care of the trees, we pick them, we ferment, dry, and package on site. So we have 100% control of the whole process, which ensures a very high quality. I talk about this a little bit more a few slides ago. So lemongrass is the second income stream that we have at Finca Chocolat. We're trying to move into vanilla and cardamom as well, but lemongrass is our current one that we're working on. We started with a test of this in 2023. The market is much smaller than cacao, but it's a fairly high growth rate at almost 10% over the next 6 years or so, 5 years, I'm sorry. And like cacao, we can market it to the same people. It's a superfood. It's used in the culinary world, but more importantly, it can be distilled into essential oil, which has a very broad market in soaps, cosmetics, and insecticides. Why did we choose this? Partially, it's because we have some areas of the farm that were a little bit compacted from the cattle when they were there, and it does extremely well at Finca, but it's also suitable for our multi-strata agroforestry system. It's the base layer, right? It goes under the cacao in the rows in between them, and maximizes our dollar per acre on this. It's a non-perishable product, and we can very easily value add through distillation. So right now what we're doing is we're selling locally to a company called Nalito, which makes a product called Truly Turmeric. They're selling what they call Fiva grass iced tea. And Fiva grass in Belize is lemongrass. It's just the Creole definition of it. And we are right now importing distillation equipment. We'll do steam distillation to distill the lemongrass into essential oil, which will allow us to package and export this very easily. So for the next year, we'll be testing the local and tourist markets in Belize and testing the export markets while we scale up. Dave, I'll turn this back over to you for a minute.
Yeah, so like we mentioned earlier, our investment minimum amount is 20,000. We do have 600 units available, with the projected returns over the lifespan is 12 to 14%. Once invested, there are no hidden costs or hidden fees. When the trees reach their life expectancy of about 30 years, they will be removed. New trees will be planted, and at that time, there'll be an additional replanting fee. The manager manages the farm, pays the bills, harvests the crop, sells the cacao, and investors receive 80% of the income after the expenses, and the manager will take 20%. So what have some of our reviews been on our cacao? Dave, you get reviews all the time. Here's a few. Do you have any other recent ones that aren't on this slide, or we can just go over these?
We can go over these, but we also just shipped a ton to Taiwan of our 2023 crop, which has been extremely well received, and they've already placed a pre-order for 2024 with us, as well as a chocolatier in Belize that we work with, also just ordered 2 tons pre-ordered from the 24 crop. So I think the fact that we have previous customers who are pre-ordering speaks as well as any review ever will.
Yeah, and I take our beans and we give them to a chocolatier who makes bars and events like where I'm at today in Phoenix, Arizona. I give out samples and they're constantly telling me, wow, this is great. Some of the best chocolate they've ever had. So it's a testament to the guys at the farm who are doing the fermenting and just doing everything right, as you see in some of these pictures here. The global cacao market is projected to grow at 3.94% during the 21 to 28 years. I feel that that may even go higher because of some of the issues we've seen or we talked about before. The market is estimated to reap a revenue worth $187 billion by 2027. There's a global rise in chocolate consumption. Production has enhanced the demand for cacao. Social media and advertising strategies have really changed people's mindsets about chocolate. Not recently, but a few years ago, former President Carter was in Belize talking about how great cacao is for the body and things like that. So there's a rising demand for chocolates with health benefits. The pandemic caused customers to become more health conscious, as we know, and chocolate with high cacao content has less sugar and fat, reduces blood pressure, lowers the risk of heart attack, stroke, and improves moods, symptoms, and depression. And who is not happy when they're eating a great chocolate bar? By 2050, the population is estimated to be at 11.2 billion people. So we're trying to position ourselves to be a part of the solution to a growing market in need of chocolate, lemongrass, and most importantly, timber, because lumber from tropical hardwoods is decreasing in supply worldwide. So every tree we're planting helps, one, reduce our carbon footprint, and also helps us to reforest the earth. And again, we're not going to cut it down and leave it barren. We're going to reforest it over and over again. So Serena and her kids can just, keep doing this and keep helping the world. Lemongrass oil, vanilla, and cardamom are all high dollar, non-perishable goods, which is what we brought out earlier. So here's some of the products. David, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. I'm going to go through this slide a little bit quickly because we're going to come back to all these points. But the top left is actually wet cacao, or cacao and baba is what they call in Latin America. This is what you get after you pick the fruit off the tree and you take it out of the pod. This then goes into the fermentation boxes, which is the next picture on the right. The fermentation takes about 6 days. After fermentation, it goes into drying for about 10 days. The next picture on the right is a small test crop that we did with vanilla at the end of 2022. We've expanded into vanilla under the cashew orchards right now. So we're filling out that 7 acres that we have right now. Cashew trees make an excellent system to grow vanilla on because they got a lot of low hanging branches that kind of span out nicely. The bottom left picture is the nursery from, I think it was 2023 probably. Very young plants. These are probably about a month old, maybe not even quite a month old at this point. We have grown for the last 2 years, 15,000 of these in the nursery ourselves. We grow it from seed. The next is the pod when it's open. David likes to eat half our profits whenever he's at the farm down at this thing. So if you join us, please help me keep them in check there. 1 pod per visit for Dave. The next is just a pile of cacao pods. I've got another picture on the background of one of these slides. The next picture is lemongrass, of which we are rapidly expanding this year. The nice thing about the lemongrass is it's a quick return. So 4 months after we plant it, we can start the harvesting. It harvests about 3 times in the first year and 4 times every year thereafter for about 8 years. And it loves the sun. So we have plenty of sun at Finca to work with in some of the open areas that we're reforesting now with the hardwoods. The last picture on the slide is a psalmwood tree. This is probably about an 8-month-old tree. We'll see a picture of another one that's about 18 months old. So keep that in mind, the difference between, half a year and a year and a half in a little bit.
So this is the picture on the left is basically, not basically, it is the survey map of the farm that you see here. So we do have a creek that goes in the back, and everybody asks, well, what is, the return? For me, what does it look like for me? And so this is kind of how we, broke it down on here, what it looks like for a $20,000 investment. We're giving people a 3% return for the first 3 years, and then the farm will definitely pick back up. But again, you see these down here, and these are price adjusted inflation. We added 3% in there, but we expect the per board foot of the hardwood trees to go up. But this is what today's rate is. So the financial highlights is it's an anticipated ROI over 25 years, with a 12% plus returns expected to continue in perpetuity until, we cut them down, we replant, and it'll be, basically nothing again for 4 or 5 years, and then it'll ramp back up. We are reforestation of the earth, a carbon, I can't even say it. Say it for me, Dave.
Carbon sequestration.
Yes. We do create jobs. We model for success. We regenerative our agricultural practices. So we try to use everything that we have. And then you can go over this side, Dave.
Sure. I just want to come back to the social and environmental aspects a little bit. As I said, we are a for-profit business. We're looking to make money on this, but the truth is we are heavily focused on making sure that we're doing the right thing at the same time. And I put an asterisk by job creation. David mentioned this a little bit, but there's up to 15% unemployment in the Toledo district of Belize. And part of the reason I personally got involved in this is because I want to make sure that there's 15 to 20 families that have good jobs, that are able to send their kids to school. High school is not free in Belize. So we're actually making a difference. The communities there are not very big. We employ most of our guys are from the surrounding villages at Finca, and it's nice to be able to actually go into the communities and see kids that have benefited from our involvement at the farm. Again, carbon sequestration is something that is a big buzzword these days. Very few people are actually doing anything about it, right? We're actually doing something or trying to. Every tree we plant helps sequester carbon, and the use of biochar really is a long-term win for both the farm and for the environment in general. And it's getting recognized. And the last point here, the model for successful regenerative agriculture practices is not unimportant at all, because in an area where slash and burn agriculture and deforestation takes place, our neighbors are starting to take note that they don't have to go in and chop down 5 more acres of forest every 2 years and move from one pasture to another. So it's nice to see that change. But let me talk about the right side of this a little bit. So we're looking for equity investment in the farm, really to reinvest in the farm. The next steps for us is to build a HACCP certified processing and storage facility so that we can process the cacao into value-added products. We need to increase, we don't need to, but we're going to increase our fermentation and drying capacity one way or another. We'd like to do it a little more quickly, and extra funding would help us do that. We're expanding our partner network, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but we started buying cacao from some of the farmers around us. This year we're buying from 20 farmers, and we would like to do more of that because the margin is great. The margin's about 20% on buying wet cacao. But that takes a little bit of financing up front in order to do it. Purchasing equipment, there's always something that we need on the farm. We'd like to have a smaller automated track. There's orchard tractors that can kind of go down under the trees. We'd like to have one or two of those, which would cut down on the manual labor. And looking to install a small fuel depot and prepare areas for vanilla, as well as importing vanilla vines. There is vanilla naturally on the farm right now, but the vanilla that we have on the farm is not a high producing vanilla. So when we are ready, when we move into vanilla aggressively, we will procure vines from Mexico, which are some of the better in the world. We're looking to upgrade our electrical and water system, invest in a solar system for the processing. We don't need that right now, but when we put the processing plant in, electricity in Belize is about 34 cents a kilowatt. So it really pays off to run solar. And in our case, we would not need battery storage because we're processing during the day. So we can put a fairly economic solar system in to get rid of that 34 cents a kilowatt cost and have it work very well during the days and just not worry about storage at night because we'd still be grid tied. When we move into vanilla, it'll be a whole new team of people that we hire and train for that. It won't be as many. We don't need as many people to take care of that crop, but I find that in my experience, women are better at dealing with vanilla. Hand pollination gets you 5 to 6 times the germination rate, and women just seem to have a better touch with that. So we'll probably hire a group of 3 or 4 ladies to take over that business for us. And we're looking to more rapidly plant out the remaining acreage that we have. So, like I said, we're going to do this ourselves over the next 5 to 6 years, no matter what. I'd like to see it done over the next 2 to 3 years, which would increase our margins and increase the return for anyone invested with us, and possibly gain economies of scale, right? We are, as David said, one of the largest farms in Belize for cacao currently. We're still small as far as cacao farms go, as long as agricultural farms go. 500 acres is not real big. I'd love to see us double or triple that. So if we get enough investment, we will finish Finca and then very quickly move into additional areas in Belize. And I really want to point out that we've never had any outstanding debt. We're cash positive with 100,000 trees in cultivation. And, the future is looking good at this point for us.
Yeah. And again, the money we're quoting on the return is just cash on cash. So then we have, depending on your tax situation, we're not accountants, but how we understand it from our, CPA team is we can deduct and depreciate all the equipment, the trees and things like that. So it's definitely, some value to you there that translates into ROI through a K1 if you're a U.S. investor.
Okay.
The growth, go ahead, David.
Okay. So some of the things that we're doing right now in 2024, I've kind of alluded to some of these a little bit, but we are increasing our local partners. So we're buying wet cacao from them. As I said, there's a 20% margin in that. And for the last 2 years, we have had more demand for our cacao than we've had available. So I know for a fact, like I said, we've got pre-orders. I could sell every ounce of cacao that we can buy wet and turn into dry cacao. I guarantee that we've got a market for it for the next 4 years minimum, and thereafter for sure, at escalated prices for the next 3 or 4 years minimum. I want to point out as well that in the projections, this has not been included, right? Buying and reselling at a higher rate has not been included in our projections. Lemongrass expansion and distillation, this was included because this was something that we started and was doing well in 2023. We're going to be at 10 acres by the time we finish in 2024, and we'll be at 30 acres in 2025. We will use the distillation equipment we're bringing in right now to sell to the existing local and tourist markets, which there's been a lot of interest, actually. Everyone right now who uses lemongrass oil in Belize has to import it, which is about a 40% markup over the retail price. So they're paying through the nose right now. I've got soap makers and some local herbalists right now kind of lining up at the door, asking us when we're going to have this ready. It will also allow us to sell hydrosol, which is the separated water from the oil, to Nolito at increased margins. Right now, we're selling them wet grass, or I'm sorry, not wet grass, fresh grass, which they then dry and process themselves. They'd like to get rid of the processing, and we can do that for them as a byproduct of the distillation. And then biochar, there's a market for biochar in Belize, but right now we are using everything that we can produce. Like, I don't want to sell it right now, but I could be selling it, but I want to reserve it for us. So as we get some more investment, we'll probably bring in a little bit more advanced biochar equipment. We're doing this in what's called a Contiki kiln right now, which is a flame cap kiln. There's a picture of it on here, but we'll probably expand and have a little bit larger retort system, which is a little more automated. What's next, Dave? Okay. So midterm, as I alluded to, we're looking to move into vanilla. Again, this is a product that's non-perishable. It can be dried and stored, so spoilage is not an issue. It closely corresponds to the cacao market. So the marketing we do for one is applicable to both very easily. Lots of chocolate makers use vanilla in their chocolate, which personally I don't like, but a lot of them do it. And again, this has not been added into the financial projection. So these are things that we hope to get into, but will take more investment to do so, or more time. One of the two will work for us. We're also intending to move into value-added products for cacao. In 2023, we were awarded a grant from the Caribbean Export Development Agency for 30,000 euros. We used that to purchase the equipment to process cacao into nibs, butter, powder, cocoa mass, which is just 100%, and couverture, which is a mixture of butter of sugar and cacao. There is a market to simply export those products. I don't intend to make finished chocolate. There's already 5 or 6 chocolate makers in Belize, and exporting finished chocolate is difficult, but I'd like to see Finca become kind of the hardware store of chocolate makers, so they can buy the pieces they want and they combine it in the way they choose to. And we can be very price competitive in doing so. And again, that is not included in our projections. Long term, we're looking at the hardwoods, right? And that's in process right now. We've planted, the numbers will come up soon, but we've planted quite a few hardwoods already, and we're going to be planting a number more. We're doing psalmwood, barbaholote, and rosewood. There's a symbiotic relationship between them. As we talked about, David talked about the fact that when we do harvest them, we've planted these in line with the life cycle of the cacao, so that as they're mature and the cacao trees are declining in their commercial lifespan, we will clear an area. It won't be the whole farm at once. We'll take it section by section, and we will log the hardwood trees. And at the next year, we'll keep the cacao going for a few years, because by then we'll selectively log the larger trees, take out some of the shade, and then kind of rotate around the farm as it makes sense for the production. The psalmwood itself grows up to about 114 feet tall. It's used in cabinetry, guitar, and base building by luthiers. And rosewood is one of the more valuable woods in the world. So between those two, we've got a really nice market. Barbaholote is something used more for kind of decorative woodworking. Not as big of a market, but really a highly defined prized wood.
Beautiful. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. How much time do we have here? 2:45. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quick, because some of this we've already talked about, but to take you through the life cycle that we're talking about. In year 1, we germinate in the saplings for cacao in the nursery. We plant them about 6 months after they've germinated, 6 to 8 months after they've germinated. And the first 3 years of their life is just pruning and maintenance. There's a lot of weeding going on the first 3 years to 4 years. The cacao gets mature, becomes mature around year 5. And then from year 5 to 25, we're harvesting and pruning the cacao. All right, I should say year 5 to 30, we're harvesting and pruning. At some point, it might be year 27, it might be year 32, we'll see the numbers. The farm is broken into different sections, and whenever we harvest, we keep track of, how much came from each section. We'll see certain sections starting to decline in productivity. It's at that point that we'll harvest the hardwoods and the cacao, and then replant those areas. Okay. To break that down a little more, you can read through this. I'm not going to read you this whole slide. It kind of goes through what I just said. First year we plant it. Year 2, 3, and 4, we are pruning and weed control. Takes 5 years for a cacao tree to kind of canopy with the ones beside it and therefore reduce the weeds. And then 6 to 30, we are harvesting and processing the cacao. No, slide got a little bit off, but okay. So again, the hardwoods that we have, I just want to point out, so we try not to dive into anything head first. There's a lot of people that come to Belize and they just throw $1 million into a hole and they wind up walking away with $100,000 if they're lucky. We take a very systematic approach to this, and sometimes that means we might be one season behind where we could have been, but we want to make sure that we're investing money where it makes sense. So just like we did with the lemongrass, we started with a small patch and have expanded aggressively after it proved successful on our property. We did the same thing in 2021 with the Psalmwood, where we put in 350 trees as a test. We had a 97% success rate. They were doing great, which actually is, I was expecting 93 or more, so 97 was great for us. And then we've aggressively planted 3,500 trees for the last 2 years of Psalmwood, and we're planting 3,500 this year. Rosewood, we did the same thing. It's not on here, but we did a little test in 22. In 23, we planted 2,000 rosewood and the barbaholote, to be honest with you, I'd like to have 2,000 of those too, but they're just harder to grow. So it's not worth our time to invest a lot of effort into them, but we're mixing them in for a little bit of diversity on the farm. This year, we'll plant again 3,500 psalmwood and 4,000 rosewood trees, as well as the 500 barbaholote. And by the end, so we'll do this for 2 more years. By the end of 2026, we'll have the whole farm planted out with hardwoods, and those will then be providing enough shade by 2029 that we'll be able, 2027, 2028, 29, that we'll be able to move into the more open areas of the farm with cacao as well. We talked about this before, but the chosen hardwoods take about 25 years to reach commercial maturity, and they are in line with the cacao trees. Yep. Okay, mahogany, I'll just talk about that real quick. We're also putting in a few mahogany trees every year, just about a handful, 100, but they take 75 to 100 years to mature. So I'll be dead by then, but my grandkids might be able to benefit from those. But it's nice to have the diversity on the farm.
Mm-hmm. This is the layout of the farm. If you look at the yellow here, that's what was planted in 22. The green area is where hardwood, or where the hardwoods, the cacao and lemongrass is planted. The blue area we planted in 23, and then the white area with no border to the right of the blue here is what we kind of are working on the next few years under the existing hardwood trees in the canopy. Then we're going to move to zone 3, which is the red border. We're going to be adding hardwoods, the shade trees that will grow, and then plant, like what Dave said, the cacao. And then the dark blue here is partially planted, and we'll add hardwoods and finish planting that out over the next 4 to 6 years. And then, of course, with any investment, you want to kind of know who the team is. And myself moved to Belize in 2010 February with my wife and Serena, and started the Remax career as an assistant to 2 agents, and then worked my way up to buy the franchise. I was introduced to Robert Kiyosaki, the Little Purple Book, which it wasn't the Rich Dad Poor Dad that got me. It was a cash flow quadrant that I liked. And then moved on to the Real Estate Guys radio show, and got the investing bug. And that's, kind of learning and then putting what I learned to practice. And then, like David mentioned, he's the managing director. He manages and sells, and then really he's really done a great job at hiring people, and we have it staggered, right? So, yeah, we have one person in charge, Rupert. If you've watched some of the other webinars, Rupert is awesome. We have a succession plan for him. And then, we kind of have succession plans for everybody. Then Mike Pine is my CPA. He's out of Dallas, Texas, and he works with, syndications, tax consulting, bookkeeping, things like that. So he'll prepare all the K1s and make sure that, we're doing kind of, everything right with the eyes of the IRS. So I just wanted to, before we kind of finish this, we have like a couple more slides. We have a chocolate discovery tour coming up. It's 4 days, 3 nights. You can visit the farm, see it for yourself, pick out a couple trees. I know there's a couple Salmwood trees. When I first met David, and we talked about a partnership, and it was probably a year old. Now that tree is way above my head. The trip is, the next dates is May 23rd to 26th. So you have some time. We have one person already signed up, and so we have limited space. So, you'll have a little bit of rest and relaxation. You'll get some vitamin C. You'll have round trip airfare from Belize City to Placencia. We'll have food, local alcohol, sodas, a snorkeling trip, or if you don't want to snorkel, you can do a coxcomb hike or swim. We'll have a chocolate experience, a Finca farm tour. We'll do a Mayan archaeological tour. So everything, is kind of all inclusive. So basically, just reach out if you're interested. And if you want to put a group together and bring a group together, we can also do private tours and things like that. Your next steps, before we get to, questions, is, if you want the business plan, the PPM documents, you can set up a call with me or, David as well. We're happy to get on a call. If you want to sign up for the farm tour, take a picture of this and go to CaribbeanCapitalGroup.com and then go under the Finca Chocolate farm tour. So we thank you all for attending. You will have a replay of this with links to the business plan, and if you want to do a soft commit as well. If you are a U.S. person, please, be mindful this 506C. If you're not sure, just set up a call with me and we'll definitely, go over it and see. And then here's my contact info, David's contact info. If you want to take a copy or a picture of that, and see that beautiful farm. I love that picture. And then that's kind of it for the slides. And so we want to kind of go into, respectful of your time, but we have some minutes and we have some questions, I think. So we have, what percentage of Finca's total acreage of 500 acres is being included in this offering?
There's about 450 plantable acres, and the 600 units are allocated to those 450. There is the remainder of the farm is roads and the processing facility and infrastructure, as well as about a 5-acre piece that we've set aside for the future processing plant and storage facilities. So it's not the whole 515 acres. It's based on the 450 acres of plantable, usable agricultural space.
But you do own a percentage of the whole farm.
Correct.
Okay, if investor wants to sell their shares after several years, how would that work? So according to the documents, you give us the opportunity to buy them from you, like the first right of refusal. And then if we don't want, or if we can't do it, or whatever reason, then we'll go within the network, right? And then if the network, doesn't do it, then we'll help you on the secondary market, if you will, to do that. If I live in Belize, must I be qualified? So Loretta, it depends on what your, if you're a U.S. citizen, yes. If you're not a U.S. citizen, then we do have a Reg S, and I think I'm allowed to talk about it. But it is for anybody outside the U.S. So we have some Canadians that are wanting to invest in the Reg S, and we have some Austrians. So what we'll do, there's ways we're going to do it with the Reg S to where you invest into the Belize company, so you're not double taxed. This is a U.S. based investment company out of Wyoming. And so what we're going to do, though, for the Canadian investors is you will invest and a Belize company, so you're not double taxed. So we help you with that. But yes, if you're a Canadian, you can invest in this through the Reg S. What are the qualifications? I don't think there are any. Again, we're just finishing up the Reg S. I need to get with my securities attorney to see what qualifications, if any, outside of, just signing the normal paperwork for Canadian citizens. So I was hoping to have it done by this webinar, but it didn't quite happen. So the paperwork is done. I just need to make sure that I am, following the letter of the law, because David and myself, we don't want to go to jail. So we're trying to do everything.
That was our first handshake. No one going to jail over this.
And also, we do give discounts if you buy over 10 units or 10 or more. So if you're interested in that, definitely give us a call.
And Steve Hassemuller asked, $20,000 a unit, does the price go up? Yes, Steve. Once we reach about 25 units, we're going to increase the price on this.
Yeah. And then once we sell a certain amount of those at 25, they will go up. And then they'll go up again. So you will have some equity in there if you get in early. So it's definitely, really, I think beneficial for you to come in early. And even if you wanted to do the 10 or more and get that 10% discount, that even gives you a lot more equity as we raise the prices.
And if we get £1 million from the UK government, we might not sell quite as many shares either.
Right. Yeah. Like David mentioned, we don't have to sell them, but we just kind of want to fast track this, so to speak, and go do it again.
Right.
The projected returns are based on what unit price? The ones on there were at 20,000.
And yeah, so unit price of 20,000 and $3 per pound at Cacao, which we're actually exceeding right now.
Yes. Thank you all for joining, and this will be sent to you.
Thank you all for the time. I appreciate it. Feel free to reach out by email if you have more questions. David and I are both available to you to answer them.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Have a nice day.